So this is question number 8 on homework 1 for problem 2-1. So here we need to prepare for the balance sheet. But what we're told is actually a balance sheet of last year, and we're provided with a bunch of information occurring over the past year. For example, the firm issued this 10.6 million shares of new stock at a total price of $59.2 million and issued 35.6 million in new long-term debt, and then generated this much of net income and paid some dividends. So we need to prepare the current balance sheet. So this is a portion of the balance sheet because only referring to the liability and equity side. So we can we start from the same order as what's given. So we start from the long-term debt. So we have the information about the existing long-term debt. And the new level of the long-term debt is simply the existing long-term debt plus whatever the firm issued over the years. So the firm issued $35.6 million in new long-term debt over the years. So that means the new or the current long-term debt will be the existing long-term debt $65,600,000 plus this $35.6 million. But we should pay attention to the rounding requirement. Do not round intermediate calculations. Enter your answers in dollars, not millions of dollars. We need to convert these million dollars into dollar amount. We can just do that. So let me use Excel to solve this problem. So let me copy that. Whatever. I think we need to be careful when we make the copy in Connect, because sometimes it won't give you the desired results. So now I have this. So the new long-term debt will be the existing amount plus 35.6 million. Again, we need to convert that into dollars. So this is my dollar amount. And then copy this number back to Connect. So that's my answer for the long-term debt part. And then the total long-term debt is simply the same, right? The same, because there's no other debt available, no other long-term debt available. Shareholders' equity part, again, we follow the order here. So the first part is first item is preferred stock. And the setup told us the firm issued 10.6 million shares of new stock. So it doesn't mention specifically whether the new stock is preferred or common stock, but by default, because that's also what happened to most of the firms. By default, this should be referred into the common stock. So that suggests that nothing happened to preferred stock. So preferred stock amount will be the same as the current amount. So we just copy this number back to Excel. And then the next one is common stock, right? If you check back the common stock. Notice here, common stock here means that it's the par value. So as when the firm issues some new shares on its certificate, it has printed some amount. So that's the so-called par value. And here the par value is $1. So that means each share has a printed value of $1. It doesn't mean the share will be sold for that amount. It's just some nominal value of that share. What the share will be sold is actually told here is for 59.2 million for 10.6 million shares of new stock over the past year. So you see the difference between these two becomes this capital surplus. So in order to get the current amount of common stock, we just need to add the existing or the old amount by this 10.6 million shares, because each share is worth $1. So this also gets us $10.6 million of new common stock. So we can add up that amount. and that becomes our, before we do that, let me copy the preferred stock amount, because later on we need to add up this the total equity. So again, this equals the current common stock plus the number of shares the firm issued over the year. So it's 10,600,000, 10,600,000, and that gives us the new common stock. And the next item is capital surplus, right? Capital surplus. Here it's a little bit tricky. The existing capital surplus is here, and actually, as we discussed, the addition to this amount should be the difference between $59.2 million and this 10.6 million shares, because each share is worth $1 on for the par value or common stock. So their difference becomes the capital surplus, the new capital surplus. If we understand that, then the question becomes no-brainer. So this is simply equals this amount, the existing amount of the capital surplus plus the difference between this total price and this new shares. So it's we convert both numbers into dollars rather than millions. So it's 10,600,000, and that gives us the new amount of capital surplus. Copy that number back. And then the next item is simply the accumulated retained earnings. Accumulated retained earnings means that it's accumulated over the years. So we know the previous amount, and the new amount or the current amount is simply the previous amount and plus the addition to retained earnings over the year. But we know the relationship between the net income, dividends, and addition to the retained earnings, right? Because net income simply equals, if I write down that formula, net income equals dividends plus addition to retained earnings. So from that we can solve out addition to retained earnings. That equals net income divided by, not divided, minus the dividend. So, and then we know the addition to the retained earnings, and we can add that amount to the existing accumulated retained earnings. That's my new addition, a new accumulated retained earnings. So we can do that in my spreadsheet. So this will become this plus go back to the 10,200,000 minus 2,600,000. Yeah, we have to be very careful in inputting the numbers, not to miss or add any zeros. So then that's my total accumulated retained earnings, and then copy that number back. So now I can calculate the total equity, right? The total equity. The total equity is simply the sum of all these amounts. So it's a sum of preferred stock and common stock and capital surplus and accumulated retained earnings. So that's my total equity. Copy that number back. And finally, total liabilities plus total equity. This is simply the sum of the long-term debt and then the total equity. So then I can copy this number back. Oh, don't be so. Okay, copy this number back. So now it's time to check my work. All right, great.